I just wanted to take a few minutes to quickly introduce you guys to the concept of camera projections because this is one of the most important tools of a matte painter. I have briefly talked about it in the previous chapter when I went over the different kind of workflows that we use. So what is camera projection? To keep it really simple, because I sort of want to do like a crash course about projections, not to do something too extensive, because otherwise it would take forever. My goal is really to give you guys like tools that you can use right away. So we use camera projections to basically make a 2D image 3D by creating parallax. So to illustrate that, I've blocked out a quick scene inside of Maya and inside of Nuke. So here I have my Maya 3D scene with the basic asset coming from Kit Bash 3D, so with some basic textures, and I'm rendering this asset through my projection cam, like I just showed you. So it is a 35mm lens, and I can show you quickly my render. So something really simple. It is really just for the example. So what I'm going to do is render one single frame. Then I'm going to export my projection cam to Nuke. So like I just did here, for example, you export selection. You can export it as an FBX or Alembic. I'm going to use FBX in this case. And I've already done it, so I'm just show you guys again what I did. So as an FBX, then it's the projection cam example here that I have. I make sure not to have any animation. I don't have any in this case anyway. Then I have my really basic Nuke setup that I did here. So let me quickly visualize it and break it down a little bit to you. So this is my render, and I have a scanline render, and then I have plugged into that a scene node. In the scene node, I have my projection shader that is made out of the project 3D node, the render, my projection cam that is plugged into my project 3D shader. Then I have here my proxy geometry onto which I'm projecting. And I did this piece of geometry inside of Maya. It is extremely simple, as you can see. It is simple the same way the geometry was really simple in those Martian breakdowns. And you will see that it is enough to create some illusion of 3D, even though I'm just using a still image. Because now, if I play my shot cam that does have a little bit of animation, you will see that it gives the illusion that this object is actually 3D, even though it is really just a flat image that is projected into a geometry that has the shape of my house. Now, if, for example, I replace my proxy geometry by a flat card, you will see that in this case, it's not gonna work really well because you will see that it's looking flat and it wouldn't work. So it's gonna be up to you, depending on your camera move, to determine how complex your proxy geometry is gonna be. The more your elements are in the background, the more you can probably use flat cards. The more your projected elements are close to the camera, the more you will need to build a geometry that is complex. But the more complex the geometry, the more likely your projection is going to break at some point, because remember, it is a flat image, meaning that the coverage we have is limited. And you can clearly see that if you do, for example, a camera move that is a bit more complex. In this case, it's a slide camera move, so we have enough coverage with just one projection cam. But if I try to do another camera move that is much more extreme, you will see that by keeping one projection with this simple geometry, we will not have enough coverage. So I'm just gonna move a little bit here my shot cam. So right now you can see it's really simple camera move. So I go to the last frame and I do something much more extreme. For example, I move my camera much more to the top where you can see the roof, because I don't have any coverage really for the top of my building. So I'm pretty sure my projection is gonna break pretty badly. So if I take a look now at this, let's go even a bit more extreme, but if I take a look at this now inside of my 2D view, so if I put my viewer on the skyline render, here you can see clearly that I am missing a ton of coverage for the top of the roof. Like at the beginning of the shot, it holds up quite nicely, but very quickly you can see the projection that is breaking. And that is obviously something that we do not want. So first thing you can do is go back to Maya. And as you can see, I have modeled something just a bit more complex. It's still really simple and it doesn't need to be more complex. And I'm just going to replace the geometry by my new geometry. And right away, it is looking a lot better. Now we still have something that is called doubling. And you can see that clearly on the left of the roof. And that is once again because we are lacking coverage. So what we need to do is to add a patch projection. That's how we call it. So what I'm first going to do is to create a new projection cam, because for a new projection, you need a new projection cam. And in this case, I'm obviously going to put this projection cam at the last frame of my shot, because that is where I will have the most coverage for the part that I'm missing, which is the roof. So learning where to place your projection cams is also something that is going to be really critical, and that only comes with experience. I think it's quite confusing at first, so that is also why I try not to do something too complex right away, because, I mean, it depends on the people, I think, but the principle of camera projections can be quite tricky to understand at first. I mean, even myself, I don't always do any more like super complex projection setups, because it can be really quite complicated quickly if you don't place your camera projections at the right frames. So in this case, what I'm simply doing first is to transfer the coordinates of the camera that I create inside of Nuke to my camera inside of Maya. So I'm simply copy pasting the attributes. But now I have my camera that is properly placed at the last frame. So what I'm doing is a new render of that last frame. That is for a second projection, because every projection is a different image. And now I can save this as my patch. So I think I named this projection example, something like that. And let's just call this one patch. So what we're going to do now is create a merge matte node. So you have here your basic projection setup. And with the merge matte node, we're simply going to merge another projection on top of this one. So it's still on the same piece of geometry. I'm going to delete the card because I don't need it anymore right now. So I'm going to type in merge matte shader. And I'm going to plug this here. So the B will be the first projection, and the A will be the patch projection that is going to be projected on top. So for that, I need my projection cam, which in this case is going to be the last frame of the shot. So what I did is copy paste my shot cam, delete the animation in the last frame, so I can plug this as my projection cam, and then I can plug in my new render on top of it, and there we have it. And now this is going to patch the missing coverage that we have. So if I place my viewer here, you can clearly see that now the lack of coverage, it is fixed.